Welcome back. Today we're going to be working on Formal Griffith from Berserk. I don't know if it actually has a name. We've just been calling it Formal insert character's name here. If you're new here, there is a link to my website down in the description, suspicioustumbleweed.com, where you'll find all my past projects, my store, my info section. Sometimes I have patterns. Hello. I have patterns available of the projects that I make. This will not be a pattern that is available, though I will go a little bit through the patterning process. It just won't be a pattern you can buy on my website. I guess I should preface this. Berserk is loosely based on, let's just call it an alternate reality version of the Tudor era. Now, the Tudor era started late 1400s and ended like very, very early 1600s. So a lot of the costumes in Berserk are kind of loosely based. Loosely based on an actual era, but they don't actually follow historical accuracy. So for this costume, I'm going to be following historical garments, but making them accurate to the character design. So I'm just going to be playing around with it. It's in no way a historical recreation. So we will be working on this shirt right here, which I based off of a shirt from the 1780s. Just because I like the little shapes it had and these little triangular gussets, but of course the buttons are, that's not relevant at all, and also it's way past the Tudor era. We will also be working on the jacket. Now the jacket I based off of a pattern from the 1600s, so we'll be talking about that, but again, it's not accurate whatsoever to the actual clothing of that era. And of course, lastly, we'll be looking at how we made the shoulder neck piece thing and the pants. Oh yeah, and the wig. We did the wig too. I'm not much of a wig stylist person. There's accounts on Instagram that make these crazy wigs, and you kind of don't understand how they did it. Perhaps they are from somewhere else in space than us, because I don't understand how they achieve that level of perfection with tiny strands of hair. But that's neither here nor there. We will be working on the wig, but just a disclaimer, I'm in no way like a crazy wig stylist person. It's not a thing. Maybe there will be some takeaway from it. But yeah, I'm gonna stop. Let's show you the video. Hey friends. Alright, so starting with that undershirt. No need to reinvent the wheel. I'm using a sleeve pattern from I think a hoodie pattern, and so is the body, I believe. However, I'm extending the width of the body so that I can gather it by doing 2 rows of stitches with an increased stitch length. The threads get pulled, gathering the fabric. It's just a matter of evening it out to match the pattern. I made that part straight because I planned on adding that little triangular gusset at the shoulder. But first, some prep for the cuffs and the front closure. Just some rectangles ironed inward to hide the raw edges. More gathering for the cuff ruffle. This ruffle needs to peek out of the jacket sleeves later. Time to close up the sleeves and side seams of the shirt. These were overlocked to avoid fraying. The shoulder seams were a little more complicated though, since I needed to set that gusset in. For the hem of the shirt, so it looks invisible on the other side, I'm hand stitching the rolled hem by picking up only 1 or 2 threads from the fabric's weave. Now the front closure. No need for interfacing for this fabric, it already had a decent amount of structure to it. And of course, I can't forget to actually connect the cuff to the sleeve. Now all that it's missing is a collar. Buttonholes and buttons. The collar is pillowcase lined, the curved edges are slashed to allow the curve to sit nicely inside out so that it can be set into place on the shirt. Oh, and I can't forget this little gold trim on the ruffle. Buttonhole time. These ones aren't hand sewn, I just used my machine. The buttons, though, are some of those blanks that you can buy to cover in fabric that you're using. More on that later. Okay, jacket. I'm looking through my Modern Maker Volume 2 for a nice pattern. I found this one right here, so I'm projecting it and tracing it to paper. Time to awkwardly check the size. It has to be loose-fitting anyway, so it's not too much to do, just only a few little changes. I spent a bunch of time making sure this brocade was folded perfectly in half for symmetry, and now I can use it to cut the lining. This is going to be flatlined, so I'm basting the pieces together to keep them from shifting while I sew. I should have done a wider seam allowance because folding all of this inwards was a hell of a trip. I wish I could say it was all perfectly clean. That's my own fault though. Twill tape here for the shoulders to avoid bulk with the arm's eye. For my hem, I'm tracing the current curve so I can cut out a lower facing. Machine stitch, remove basting, iron, sew up the front closure. It has a visible line of stitching on the reference too, by the way. But not the hem, so back to invisible stitching. Much easier this time with the lining layer. Now, Griffith is a man of many cuffs with this outfit, so we start with the little baby sleeve. And since I'm running low on brocade, I figured it would be a good time to start cutting out the strips I'll need later out of the small, scrappy areas. And hell, I might as well just procrastinate the cuff part fully and iron them. Connect that gold trim to an off-white ribbon, and then maybe also sew those strips to it, cut them out. I could go back to the cuff, but I'm on such a roll here, I might as well just fold them up and finish them too. Okay, back to the cuff. I didn't have enough to fully line it with itself, so I had to cut out half of it using the purple lining for the rest. Honestly, that's the real reason why I switched to the strips. I needed to be sure I'd have enough of them before cutting off the rest for the cuff. At the same time, I'm working on the sleeve cap. I'm not joking at all when I say I use nearly 100% of this material. Once it was turned inside out, I realized I forgot to add interfacing, so I'm going to go ahead and do a scroll of destiny to put it inside. Took a few tries, I won't lie. And now I can be slightly off camera to close it up. The sleeve gets the same treatment as the jacket, and then slightly eased to accommodate the cuff. This will give the elbow a little bit of volume and breathing room. Now there is a raw edge inside of the cuff, but I pinked them to keep them from fraying too much, plus this area will never be seen or subject to much stress at all. I got these lovely buttons on eBay. Yeah, I still use eBay sometimes. And look how cool the crappy plastic button part just pops right out so I can mark the center. Anyways, this is a pattern to mark my placements. And that's right, my first ever hand-sewn buttonholes are going to be these super long ones. I'm starting by outlining the bottom hole with 2 running stitches. And then I felt proud of how clean it looked, so I texted my mom about it. She actually printed it out immediately and put it on the fridge and sent me a picture. My wax here felt too old and falling apart, so I started melting it into a new mold, and now it's time to continue. I waxed some of that hand embroidery floss stuff and began my journey around the buttonhole. A few months later, Nicole Rudolph came out with a video on hand-sewn buttonholes, so in hindsight, I would have done this as a closed, fake one, and only left an opening at the top. Obviously, the more I did, the better they got. Okay, so that earlier was a baby sleeve, and now I'm making the rest of the sleeve with, what's this called? Suede. My mind kept thinking velvet. It too will have a cuff. I'm interfacing this one though, since the fabric was a lot thinner. And this time, I did a wider seam allowance, so my turn seam was a lot nicer. In order to know where to put the lower sleeve, I had to set in the upper sleeve to get the length right. That sleeve cap gets sewn in at the same time. This was a while ago, but I have a feeling that I moved on to the collar here because that purple lining fabric likes to fray quite a bit. Unfortunately, I hate this collar. It would be better curved, but I had no more of the brocade, so it had to be a rectangle. It just doesn't sit right, even when I blasted it with steam. Alright, so these covered button blanks come with a circle template. You just cut them out, put them on top of the little mold thing, push half of it in, shove the excess into the center, and put the other half on. Really simple, just make sure you have the right diameter mold thingy. I put a layer of batting inside my cuff to give it a little bit of extra body, and connected it the exact same way as the other one. I'm sure there are better ways I could have connected the baby sleeve to the lower sleeve, but I went with twill tape connected to lower sleeve, pin circle, tedious lower sleeve alignment, this guy right here, and then I hand sewed it on. Now the very professional marker through the buttonhole to mark the location for the buttons. Very bright sewing machine shot of me sewing twill tape to the arm's eyes raw edge and then hand sewing it down to the other side. Very professional, historically accurate technique called fabric glue the strips into the sleeve cap thing. And then sit there and hold it till it dries. This time for the buttonholes, I'm sewing my rectangle by machine before hand sewing the buttonholes. Pants time! I'm just using a pattern I already have, but making it a little bit shorter. I want the least amount of work possible with hiding the seam allowances, so I'm preparing my leg cuffs now. For the side seams, I'm alternating the direction in which I iron the edge. That way I can fit them together like this, encasing both raw edges at the same time. And both sides get sewn. The bit at the bottom gets seam ripped, the edge rolled under once more, and sewn. The other seams were French seamed, by the way. They were not forgotten. Back to the cuffs. They're gathered, and then those strips I prepared earlier sandwich the raw edge. For the crotch seam, though, I'm not doing French seams. For this, I'm going to encase it in some twill tape. Now the top portion of the pants. I went a little bit useless with, since it's all so far up the shirt that no one's ever going to see it. But here we go, let's pleat some of the width, add elastic at the back for the pants to have a bit more of a flexible fit, sew on our waistband in a way that I'm sure could have been done way easier by, oh, I don't know, seaming it to the front, folding it over into the back, and then stitching in the ditch. And the pièce de useless résistance, this little front rectangle with two decorative buttons. Oh, but here's a non-useless detail, the decorative button on the cuff with a snap not strong enough to stay snapped when you walk. Structurally useless, but not aesthetically useless. Listen, I like to share these things to show that even after 10 plus years of experience, we still make dumb mistakes. Okay, let's head on over to this shoulder doily. Again, the super professional duct tape clear wrap technique is used. And while I'm at it, tracing the area I need to digitize for embroidery. To trace it right, I'm using my awl to poke holes so the seam can be evenly drawn. The collar is seamed on now as well, but the under half has a gap left open. Every little curve was sewn, and it took forever. But now I can turn it inside out through that little hole left open, and I just have to hand sew it shut. This inside out technique took me over 10 years to figure out. Better late than never. The sheer fabric makes another appearance for a little ascot bow situation on his neck. hooks and eyes on this little ribbon will be enough to hold this closed. And the ascot thing gets steamed into shape. Took me a little bit to sort all of these out in one hoop, but I managed. Also, 161 minutes to embroider it all. Seems crazy, but that's a heck of a lot less of time than doing it by hand. They get ironed and clapped, and then fabric glued to the main piece. But something still felt empty, so I'm sewing little gold beads between each one. Like I said, I'm not a super skilled wig stylist, but I give it my best shot. I'm going to start by using some hairspray with a curling iron to give his hair those curly waves. They get brushed out, and since this was a $20 Amazon wig, I could see a little bit of the cap on the top. An easy fix, it wasn't that bad, I just had to crimp some of the inner layers. For this outfit, he has his hair tied back in a low ponytail. Now I can cut the bangs. I know a better way to do this type of bang now, but it all worked out in the end. To get some extra volume in the ponytail, I'm teasing some of the inside. And now I can laugh at past me for painstakingly turning this inside out, because I now have tools for this job that make it 10 times easier. Anyways, it's a hair tie, and we're done. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I stream all of my work on twitch.tv/suspicioustumble. All the links are down there in the description. And also we're on Discord. If ever have you made a costume from Berserk, I would love to see it. I'm not super knowledgeable on most anime things, but I have seen Berserk, and I do like Berserk. So if you've made something from that, if you made this exact costume, I would love to see it. Come share it with us on Discord or send it to me in other means. Like I said, there's links down there in that general direction. Which I get, okay. I know for a while ago, I had posted a video where I said that I wanted to remake Casca because I got into historical and I got into hand sewing after I had made that dress, and it still kind of haunts me. I keep convincing myself, like, no, you don't need to do that, and then sometimes those intrusive thoughts slide back in. So I'm not saying that I'm ever gonna remake it, but there's also maybe a possibility. I probably don't need to, but anyways, thank you so much to my Twitch subscribers who helped make all of this possible. Thank you so much. Without you guys, I would actually look like a crazy person right now because I wouldn't be posting this anywhere. I would just be standing here. So that's one. And two, you guys keep me company while I work, and you guys help keep me motivated and all of that. So I'm just gonna go. I'll see you guys. Bye. Junk, you come say bye? Wow.